Hey you guys, today I'm going to be taking you through a lower body foam rolling series. All right, so like I mentioned, you guys, we are going to be using the longer foam roller. If you have one that isn't as long as this 26-inch one that I have, totally cool. You can also do it with a 13-inch one. What I really like about using the longer ones is that you can do both legs at once, but that necessarily isn't an end-all be-all. I'm just showing you the one that I'm going to be using. So go ahead and grab your foam roller and let's go ahead and start rolling out our lower body. You can put down a mat if you want to. I don't usually use a mat just because I don't want it to be bunching up underneath me as I'm rolling out. And I'm going to start by placing my calves on top of the roller. So like I mentioned in my review of the trigger point roller, is I really like that there's grid lines on it, which allow me to get a little bit of extra massage in my tissue. So for the grid roller, I've lined up my legs so that they go 1 to each grid marks, if you can see. Otherwise, your legs are about hip width apart. If you're doing both legs at the same time, you do a little bit of arm work, right? I lifted my bottom so that I can be moving my foam roller forward and back. But also, if that was a little bit too much on your hands or your wrists, you can always scoot it over to the edge and you can decide to do one leg at a time, and then you have that leg that's also assisting and helping you to carry your own weight as you're rolling forward and back. When you are using one leg at a time, what I really like about it is then it also allows you to change the direction of where your foot is pointing. So I'm changing the direction from internal to external. And then as I do that, I'm noticing where there's any tightness in that specific part of my gastroc, of my calf. So I'm noticing that my medial gastroc, that inside one, is a little bit tighter than my lateral gastroc. I've been doing a little bit more interval training. I just moved it a little bit higher on my gastroc. I just started doing a little bit more interval training, and so I've been using my feet muscles a little bit more. I feel like my calves are strong because I run regularly, but as I'm doing a little bit more plyometric work, it's a little bit more springy. I'm working on getting more like height in my jumps versus speed, or it's just a little bit different than pushing against the pavement. So it's a different kind of work on my calves, and I've been feeling that a little bit more. So like I said, still internal to external. And then if you notice that there's any spots where you feel any knots, go ahead and take a moment to rest on one of those spots. So once you're there, play around with flexing the foot and pointing your foot and seeing if that changes any tension in the knot. Does it make it feel like you're getting like a little bit of a thumb pressure into that spot? Or does it feel pretty easy peasy? Feels pretty easy peasy, then go ahead, lift that bottom up, see if you can pick another spot. Found another one here, and then flex and point here. This one I feel a little bit more pressure, so I'm going to continue in that spot with that flexing and pointing. If you didn't find one, just go ahead, pick another one. I'm also going to show you another technique that you can use with your calf. All right, let's pick up that foot and go forward and back again. See if you can find another tension spot. I found one. All right, we're going to point our toe, and now we're going to draw a circle. Like you're trying to point that toe around an apple or an orange. And now it's kind of moving that calf from side to side, which on the grid trigger point foam roller I really like, because now instead of just that up and down, you get a little bit of side to side massage as well, different than using a foam one that's like smooth contour. One more 10. And then you can switch the circle if you would like to. I am going to switch legs so that my left leg can be even too. We can go a little bit faster if you would like to. We're going to go forward and back, trying to find those spots where you have any knots. And you kind of know the game now. We're going to find that knot. You're going to point your toe and flex your foot. Point your toe and flex your foot. Super interesting. My right leg was tighter on the inside. My left leg a little bit tighter on the outside. You do have two gastroc heads, like I said, lateral and medial. One is located on a little bit more on the outside of your leg, hence lateral. One's located a little bit more on the inside of your leg. Medial, meaning middle, towards your midline. And that also can give you a little bit of information on how you put pressure through your feet. So I do know I tend to roll out on my right foot a little bit more. I've been trying to correct that, which means that I've been using the inside of my calf a little bit more. So it makes sense that it was tight there. We're going to go into those circles again. So find a knot, circle. And so I like playing around with pointing the foot and drawing shapes. When you point and flex, what you're doing is you're changing the length of the muscle tissue in your calf without rolling it, right? Rolling it for upwards and downwards, that's one way to massage out the tissue. But then you can just hold it in a static, isometric, frozen spot. And by flexing and pointing, now you're changing the muscle tissue instead of rolling on the muscle tissue. Last one, 10. All right. I'm going to move my foam roller so that now it's going to be on the back of my hamstrings. I don't think these guys are super tight. So I'm just going to roll forward and back. Like I said, you can do one leg at a time if you feel like there's a lot of pressure on your hands here. My hamstrings are tight, so this actually feels super yummy. I don't necessarily feel any knots, but if you did, you could play around with that same flexing and pointing and that same circling of your ankle, because it still is going to change what's happening to the back line of your hamstring. And I'm not super tight here. If you guys are, you can spend a little bit more time here. But I'm going to move this foam roller to my bottom now. So we're doing our whole back chain. As we go to the bottom, I'm going to turn to one side slightly. So it's a little bit more on the outside of my hip, but not my hip bone. It's still like on the meaty part of my bottom. And I'm going to do a little bit of a figure four stretch here. So as I go into my figure four stretch, what that does is it lengthens the side of my glute and median. And it allows me to get a little bit deeper into my side glute muscle as I'm rolling forward and back. So I'm just rolling, making sure that I'm rolling on tissue and not bone. So we never want to roll over any joints. So not on the knee bone, not on the ankle bone, heel bone. I'm trying to stay away from that prominence of my hip bone. And just stay on the meaty glute. And you can find a spot where there is a little bit of tightness. You want to be able to breathe through it. So make sure that you're not holding any tension in your face. Big inhale, big exhale. We're going to try to close the knee in and then push the knee out. Close the knee in and push the knee out. So that the foam roller is still. And now we're changing. We, using our own active muscle contraction, are changing the length of the tissue that goes around the side of the hip. Trying to find where there's any tightness. Oh, I found one. Just scooted down a little micro inch and I was able to find where I was a little bit tight in that side hip. And maybe you do that as well, changing just micro inches at a time, seeing where there's any spots that are tight, a little bit uncomfortable to lengthen. A little bit. I always tell my clients on a scale of 1 to 10, it's maybe around a 4. You want to be able to have a soft face. You want to be able to relax your breath into it. That's going to help us change that nervous system. Versus if you hold a lot of tension, there's not going to be the change that we want to see. Then we're not really maximizing our time. Last one here. All right, and then I'm actually gonna continue with my right leg, and I'm gonna turn onto my side for my IT band. So as I go into my IT band, I'm on my right leg. So my right leg's on the bottom, my left leg will be forward and in front, and I'm gonna roll down towards the knee, but not on the knee, and then up towards my hip, but not on my hip bone. Down, and then up. And my IT band for me is not one that gets super tight, so I don't feel any knots per se that are sticking out, but I know that the IT band is something that's tight on other people, so let's go ahead and pick somewhere to pause. Pick a spot that you feel a knot, and then from here, I'm just going to drag my foot along the floor. It bends and then extends. You don't have to do this one if it feels like a lot on your body. Remember, we're looking for that number 4. So maybe just right now going up and down with that foam roller is enough. And then working towards this bend and extend is something that you work towards, but it might not be in your body today, and that's okay. You know that you have somewhere that you can go, somewhere you can progress to, somewhere that our body can open up to. After about 10, you can pick another spot, do the same thing. Or we can move on to our quad. I'm going to move on to my quad because, like I said, I don't really feel too much in my IT band. And how will I do this? I want you guys to still be able to see. I'm going to flip around so that I can put this on the front side of my thigh. So we're going to go to the top, but not on my hip bone. And then I'm going to kind of army crawl forward to just right above my knee. So my thigh, I did a lot of squats yesterday, so I can feel that it's a little bit tighter, but not too bad. It's still pretty comfortable for me. Feels just like a nice massage. Just trying to stimulate a little bit more blood flow through the muscle tissue. Try to alleviate any pressure points, any knots. And if you feel a spot where there's a knot, you can bend the heel bone in and extend. You also have the option to just sit there. Sitting there is also going to create a change in your body as the body sends a message to the brain that it's okay to relax into it. And you'll start to feel that muscle tissue open up. After 10 bends, I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to see if there's somewhere else that could use a little bit of pressure. I feel one a little bit higher up. This one, I don't think it's going to allow me to bend and extend as much. So I'm just going to sit into it, show you guys that it's okay to sit in. And I'm just going to breathe into it with every exhale. I let my thigh bone get a little bit heavier into the foam roller. And it feels like it's relaxing into it a little bit more. I'm going to see if I can bend it. Oh yeah. So you can tell that even just from not doing anything, that allowed the muscle tissue to relax and open up a little bit more. And now I am able to bend and extend my leg. Last one, 10. And then from there, I'm going to switch over to my left side because I didn't get to do that guy. If I am doing just one side at a time, I do like to try to change up the different ends of the foam roller that I'm using so that I feel like each side of the foam gets equal work. I feel like that helps to increase the longevity of the foam roller, but that might be in my head. That might just be an OCD thing. All right, so we're in that figure 4 stretch, doing our piriformis roll. Seeing where there's any knots, any significant changes in tightness. If you feel like you found a spot that feels a little bit tighter, then we're going to bend the knee in towards us and then press the knee away from us. Bend and press. So the foam roller is still, but we're changing the angle of our thigh bone to massage out the tissue on the roller. I'm going to roll down a little bit more, see if that changed. Oh yeah, that made a difference. I was like, I know my hips get tight. I was just not in the right spot. So you want to sink into those uncomfortable places because that's what's going to benefit you the most. You saw on the other side that as I sank into it, as I just relaxed into it, how it was able to allow the tissue to relax and open up and kind of like dissipate that knot. What really happens is there's this communication between the brain and the body, and the brain perceives it as it kind of being like safe, and so it is able to relax and open up that spot that was previously tight. There's more blood flow that's going into that area as we sit on it. One more here. All right. And then we're going to turn over for our IT band. I'm going to go on my left side. Right leg is going to go over my left leg. My left leg is the one that's at the bottom. And then from here, we're going to go towards the knee bone and then towards the hip. I'm using my top leg as much as I need to help push away from the ground so that I can really roll through that side of my leg. And try not to come too far towards the front, right? Because we're going to get our quads in a little bit. Right now we're really trying to get that sideline of our leg. And then remember we did those bends and stretches. So I'm going to keep both my hands to the floor, bend my heel to the roller, and then extend it out. Bend and then extend. Changing the length of the tissue as we're sitting on that one spot on the roller. Make sure you're not moving up and down with that roller. We're just bending and extending our knee. After 10, you're going to straighten out your leg. Maybe creep up a little bit higher or lower depending on where you feel like there's a knot. And we bend and extend from there. Remember that it's totally cool to just sit into that spot. Take a couple breaths there, maybe like 5. And then after 5 breaths, then you can see if you can bend it. But if not, that's okay. Then that just lets you know what specific spots you have to work on. And then you know that you can only get better the more you practice. But it's not going to get better if you don't regularly do it. Consistency is key here. All right. Last but not least, we're going to go into the quads. So for the quads, I'm going to show you how to do it with both legs on, because the quads and the hamstrings and the calves, those are areas where you can do both of them at the same time. I'm going to line it up with the grid marks here. Lay down into my army crawl position. Army crawl forward. And then army crawl backwards. And same thing as when we were doing the calves, you can play around with where your toes are pointing. You can point them out. That's going to get a little bit more of the inner quads. You're going to turn them in, and then you get a little bit more of the lateral ones. Versus if you're just pointing them straight, that's a little bit more of your front quad, your rectus femoris. You've got 4 quads, so play around with the different angles on them. My VMO, that one doesn't tend to get tight. My rectus, that's the one that's to the front, tends to get tight, as well as my lateralis, which is a little bit more on the outside. So that I would target that by trying to turn my toes a little bit more in towards one another. You can tell that that makes you a little bit more knock-kneed, but then that also makes it so a little bit more of the outside quads are a little bit more on the roller. So play around with that. And then you can also do your same bend and extend. So notice how when I have both legs on, I am able to bend both my legs right off the bat. My right side, it was a little bit harder. So I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment, which I know how the experiment's going to go, but you just go ahead and do the experiment with me. When I have one leg on, I put a little bit more weight into the one leg that's on versus when there's 2 legs on. It's a little bit more even weight distribution. So here, still a little bit easier to bend and extend my thigh, but I can feel a little bit more tension through the front of the quad than when I had both legs on the roller. So play around with it. You can change it up on a day-to-day basis. I do like to do both. If I have a little bit more time, then I'll foam roll my legs separately. If I'm a little bit crunched for time, then that's when I'll roll them together. Another one that you can do, which I like, tends to look a little bit awkward. I'll show you from this front view. You can make your foam roller go to an angle, and then from here, you're going to take your knee bone over the foam roller, and you're going to go from your inner thigh to your knee. So it's rolling out those adductors. For me, not necessarily a spot that gets super tight, but maybe for you it is. Also, once you get a little bit closer to your knee, maybe you foam roll a little bit of that VMO and that VMO is tight on you. Depends. And you can also do that same extend and bend. Find that spot where there's a little bit more of a knot, and that bending and extending will help to change the length of the tissue as you're resting in that one spot on the roller. I'm going to show you again on the other side. So as I did my right leg, my foam roller was, if I had it straight, I tilted it to the outside right. So as I go to my left, find my foam roller at a straight position, tilt it to the outside left, and then from here, I lay down as if I were laying down straight on a mat, and I go to the side, from side to side. So it's not vertical. The foam roller is not running parallel with me. It is a little bit angled. And then from here, find that knot. You go out and you come in. Feels like a good stretch for me. But in terms of rolling out, my inner thighs are not super duper tight. Took it a little bit closer towards my knee bone, but remember, not on my knee bone, not on my kneecap. And I can feel on this side my VMO a little bit tighter. But inner thighs, which is a little bit closer to that pelvis, not feeling too much, and that's okay. I still like to foam roll everything, even in those spots that I know are not super tight on me, because it gives me an idea of how my body is feeling on that particular day, because bodies are different on a day-to-day basis. Anyways, that is it for our lower body foam rolling. If you enjoyed that rolling sequence, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. If you are looking forward to seeing more foam rolling videos, January, that is our theme for this month, go ahead and subscribe. I am going to be posting more fitness content, more nutrition content, and more workout videos. So if there's anything in particular that you are interested in seeing, go ahead and put it in the comment section below so that maybe you can be responsible for picking out the February theme. Have a good one, you guys.